everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of Table Talk Sessions, the True Crime Chronicles. Table Talk Sessions is about having authentic conversations, so I hope that by sharing some of these crimes or cases, that it will generate not only conversations, but being more cognizant to the relationships and friendships that we entertain, and of course, watching for those red flags. I have stumbled across some of the wildest court cases, and today, in this shocking True Crime Chronicles, we unravel the gruesome and chilling case of Taylor Schabusiness, the woman convicted of the brutal murder and dismemberment of 24-year-old Shad Thyrion in Green Bay, Wisconsin. What began as a night of drug use and intimacy turned into a horrifying crime scene that left investigators stunned. We'll take you inside the disturbing details of the case, including the medical examiner's chilling report, the evidence that led to Taylor's conviction, and the courtroom chaos that followed, like the moment she attacked her own attorney during the trial. From her troubled past to the shocking forensic findings, we break down every detail of this horrifying crime. Was this an act of fueled by drugs, or was Taylor Schabusiness always capable of such brutality? Stay tuned as we analyze the red flags, the psychological motives, and what we can learn from this tragic case and those red flags. Let me first introduce you to Taylor Schabusiness as she gives the sheriffs the business. Meet Taylor, an unpredictable, violent young woman who took taking matters into her own hands way too literally. And if you think attacking her own lawyer is shocking, brace yourself for what this court case reveals, because that's just business. Now, Shad Thyrion was a 24-year-old born September 7th, 1997 in Green Bay, Wisconsin, to Tara Pakanich and Michael Thyrion. Shad attended Howard Sumaco schools as a child and later worked with his father and grandfather at their family businesses. Shad enjoyed camping, playing games, and spending time with his family. He was a very kind and compassionate person who often thought of others before himself. He also was a talented artist and he enjoyed wood carving. And this was actually the synopsis that I gathered from the obituary that was published after his passing. He came from a close knit family and was especially loved by his mother, who tragically discovered the gruesome crime scene. Shad enjoyed spending time, of course, with his loved ones, and they described him as having like a laid back personality, but he also struggled with substance use, which played a role in his association with Taylor Schabusiness. So, in previous court cases that I've shared already in our previous episodes, I tried to give homage or pay homage in a positive light to the victim. And so here is Shad. He was 24 when he passed away. And those are just descriptors of his personality, as he is the person who fell to a demise due to Taylor Schabusiness, the person who we're speaking on today in the court case. Now, Taylor Schabusiness was born Taylor Denise Coronado in November of 1997 to her parents, Marla and Arturo Coronado. She experienced a lot of personal challenges throughout her life, and I am going through some of her tragedies and traumas because it may speak to the psychological, like mental break that I believe led to this tragic outcome. So at the age of 11, she faced the profound loss of her mother, Marla. And then after the death of her mother, her father then remarried. And that mother, I believe, had children. And so the grandmother testified at her sentencing to basically describe that the dynamics changed a lot when her mother passed. So they were like staying in like a beautiful home. And somehow when the mom passed away, and there were so many more children after he remarried, that she ended up, her and her brother lived like in the basement. And so like that might have been like a trauma occurrence to that effect, you know. not making excuses, but making it to be where you could put emphasis on what led her to do these things to Shad. Now, the wife's daughter of the person that her father remarried accused Arturo of rape. And so, or sexual assault rather. And so he was convicted of second degree sexual assault of a child, and he's currently serving a 12-year prison sentence. Now, the dad does testify. He did testify at the um, trial. During the trial, he did testify, and he actually was sentenced to his term a week before his daughter, who is Taylor, pled no contest. Okay. And then a second degree, as it relates to her father, Arturo, means in Wisconsin, it's classified as a sexual contact or sexual intercourse with a person who has not attained the age of 16 years. And so the alleged victim in the case with her father, Taylor's father, the young girl was 13 when she claimed that Coronado, Taylor's father, raped her in her bedroom. And that was a criminal complaint that was filed against him. Now, additionally, in 2022, Taylor's only sibling, which was her brother, his name was AJ, biological brother, he died in a motorcycle accident at the age of 22. So these cumulative personal tragedies were markers on Taylor's early life. So again, we're talking about her mom passing away, dad remarrying, her living circumstances changed, her blood brother, AJ, passed away, and not so long ago, as a matter of fact, when all this occurs, her father was arrested, jailed for what he did to a minor. Now, in my mind, I was thinking he did that to a minor. You never know what other things Taylor endured, possibly at the hands of her father. And this is me saying that allegedly, but just taking that into consideration as well. Now, in Taylor's personal life, she married a man named Warren, and he also has faced legal issues of his own. In 2021, Warren, who is Taylor's husband, was charged in federal court for possessing and intending to distribute meth. And so, leading to his incarceration, he is locked up as well. So, Taylor and Warren had a young son together. And so, that again is another complexity to her personal circumstances. So, lost mother. She's now lost her father because he also was in prison. Now, lost her brother to the motorcycle accident, and then married, and her husband gets incarcerated. He's locked up. So she's left with her son, and now she doesn't have her son because she is locked up as well. Now, Taylor's grandmother, Esther Coronado, told the court as a part of her witness statement that Schabusiness was once a loving mother, but she relapsed into her addiction after Child Protective Services took her son away just days after he was born. So that alleged or that testimony of her grandmother let us know that Taylor, had addiction herself to drugs, even though there was evidence at the crime scene that she and Shad had been doing drugs together. I'm saying that to say that she had a history of using drugs. She was discharged from the hospital after giving birth and left for shelter, is what her grandmother testified. And she said now she has custody, meaning the grandmother has custody of the 2-year-old child. And that's what she told the court. And I did watch that on YouTube when this was occurring. She was really speaking to Taylor's trauma. And it was almost like she was speaking to, consider all of the different things that Taylor's had to deal with, even since being a child. So at the time, before, of course, the Child Protective Services situation happened, her grandmother was saying that she was setting things up for the baby, but they never got to come together. They never got to be together because from the time the baby was born, she basically did not get to be with the child because she ended up going to the shelter. Protective Services swooped in, and so she didn't really get a lot of bonding time with her child. So Schabusiness is a felon who was previously convicted of fleeing an officer and resisting, as well as battery or threat to a judge and to a prosecutor or a law enforcement officer. And this happened in 2020 when she was facing similar like felony charges. So I'm providing this background information on Taylor to bring consideration of what she may have experienced in her own upbringing, leading to the mental break that she unfortunately seemed to have taken out on Shad. So that's a lot to consider, and I've included pictures just so you all can see her family dynamic as well. So moving right along, let's get more into the details. Now, according to reports, the night started as an ordinary evening between two people who had been spending time together. And Taylor was not new to the family. Shad's mom shared that she had known her for a few years. I believe they've gone to school together at some point in time. But as drugs and violent tendencies mixed, the situation turned a horrifying turn. And it braced to the point of Shad's mom finding her son in a bucket. Um, so let's go into the details. So, what we have noted as it pertains to the mom's testimony, because she did testify to the jury about being woken up in the middle of the night by a door to her home slamming. So she got out of bed, checked the basement of her home to see if her son was still home. Now, when she didn't find him in the basement, which is where her son was staying for the time being, she turned to walk upstairs, and that's when she saw a 5 gallon bucket with a towel on top of it. So his mom then took the towel off the bucket and found her son's head inside. Now, according to a criminal complaint at about 3:25 in the morning on February 23rd, an officer was dispatched to a residence in the city of Green Bay, Wisconsin, because they had had a report saying that there was a severed head being found in a bucket in the basement. Now, during the court trial, I listened on YouTube. You can hear the state asked, could they play the 911 call that was called to the communication line prior to dispatch. And in that call, the mother's the mother's boyfriend is on the phone talking to 911, and it's almost like you could tell that they were in shock with discovering the body. And so he's like, but he doesn't know a lot about the woman that he's dating. They're asking like when is his date of birth, they're asking, what's the mom's name and her middle name and all these things, and he's like struggling to answer. So then they're finally like, sir, can we talk to the mom? He's like, yes. But she's like in shock because she's the one that discovered the head in the bucket. So nevertheless, they get the cops to come to the home, based on, because even in the 911 call, like you can hear the person on the phone asking, well, are you sure there's a head in the bucket? And they're like, yes. And so I think even like the people who are in the communications for 911, because the person who got the call ended up having to take the stand and corroborating what was said and encountered during that call. So essentially, police had determined that Schabusiness was the last person to see the victim at that point because of the time of night, the mom saying, hey, he was with this young lady named Taylor. And all of this is in the recording you can find when the police arrive and they're continuing to ask the questions and all the things. Now, officers went to arrest Taylor. When officers saw her emerge from her apartment, she had what appeared to be dried blood on the front of her black hooded sweatshirt as well as her black sweatpants. Now, according to the report from the police, her hands appeared to be smeared with blood as well. And when the officers asked her, like, do you know why we're here? She stated something to the effect of, because my warrant, or you have a warrant for my arrest. Now, Taylor Schabusiness, who was 25 at the time, was arrested and charged for allegedly murdering Shad Thyrion inside of his mother's Green Bay home. Now, the criminal report also says that early in the morning on February 23rd that police found a severed head inside of a bucket in the basement, just as her mother was describing when she called, or when the boyfriend of the mom called 911. Now, Schabusiness said that her and Shad were using drugs, including meth, and that she had cut off Thyrion's or Shad's head, and then she um, basically intimately assaulted him, and then dismembered the rest of his body. Now, detectives found his body parts in plastic bags, that bucket, the storage tote. There was also like a crock pot box, and there was members in that as well. And the box was found in Shabusiness's van. Now, Shabusiness allegedly told investigators that she was strangling him during their intercourse, and this was like consensual to be when it first started, and then she realized how much she liked strangling him, and so she just kept going, so she just like took it too far. And during the police questioning with her interrogation, she laughed, made disturbing comments, and she also admitted to strangling him because she enjoyed it so much. And she said she would have taken it further during the actual act, but she got too lazy. Just crazy. She also shared that she blacked out during this like terrible crime. So she was strangling him. Allegedly, she says she blacked out in the process and killed him in the process of that. Now, drugs were in the mix of all of that, of this crime. So I don't know if it was a drug type situation where she just lost herself, or if, she felt like she was in another realm and then was brought back to reality and realized what she did. It's just, just say no to drugs, because what in the world? And then she talked about during the interrogation that after he passed away and she knew he was gone, that she played with like his genitals and was doing acts with it after the fact for like 2 and 3 hours doing this. And that is crazy. She also said to the investigators that her and a friend had picked up Shad in a minivan. They got the drugs, smoked some marijuana, and then they smoked the meth. They shot up themselves with this thing called trazodone, which is a type of depressant, and a sedative. So both of them were indulgent in in the drugs, or rather. But it took a turn for Shad for sure. She said it took him about 3 to 5 minutes to actually pass away. And then she just talked about how, to the interrogator, she asked him something to the effect of, "Have you ever loved something so much that you killed it?" And that's off putting. She, talked about putting a leg and the foot in the van, and she just so happened to forget the head that the mother found in the bucket. So she intended, based on what it sounded like with the interrogation, she was going to take the bucket and the head to the van, but just forgot. Drugs are something serious, is all I'm going to say. That's just crazy, just wild. And then I just want to add that the chain that she used in strangling him was found, and she confessed to all of these things. So it wasn't like she was pleading not guilty. She admitted to all of these things, and everything that she was admitting to aligned with what they found in the investigation. Now, during the trial, the medical examiner provided a detailed and graphic account of the victim's condition. I do want to plug in and give a content warning that what I'm going to share right now is going to be exceedingly graphic. And I'm going to say that just so you can feel the gravity of her assault on Shad. With that in mind, the examiner testified that Shad's body was essentially bloodless, indicating significant blood loss prior to or during the dismemberment process. The absence of blood suggested that the heart had stopped beating before the mutilation occurred, which either way this is tragic, but at least Chad did not suffer dismemberment while she was doing it. So he was strangled, passed away from the strangulation, and then she dismembered him. Now, additionally, the examiner noted that multiple body parts had been removed with precision, pointing to the use of sharp instruments. These findings underscore the brutality of the crime and were pivotal in the prosecution's case against Schabusiness. Now, the state alleged that the 25-year-old defendant took advantage of him during rough intimacy and choked him to death with a chain before later having intercourse with his corpse, otherwise violating the dead man's body and then cutting it into several pieces. So they were having consensual relations with rough intimacy. She enjoyed it a bit too much, and he ended up passing away through the use of a chain. And then again, she later dismembers him. Now, the Dane County deputy who is testifying on the state's behalf, the medical examiner, he explained in detail. And what you're seeing, if you're seeing the video on screen, is the image depicted of what the examiner saw when he is going through the autopsy of the body. So this is what the court saw, the jury saw, the judge saw. This is what everybody witnessed based on the medical examiner's report. Now, again, I'm inserting content warning. So if you have a weak stomach, here's your time to, brace yourself or click. Now, according to the state's witness, the toxicology reports were sharing that he did not believe that what was composed in the bucket that was found was not all of just the descendant, the person who passed away, was not just blood. It also included spinal fluid, water, and he believed another person's blood was mixed as well. So essentially, it had been compromised to some degree. The medical examiner also explained that this was a horrendous, lengthy, like hours long process, in his opinion, and it spoke to the victim's literal blood bleeding out in the process. He described that the back had been largely flayed and defleshed. He noted and directed the jurors to put attention to the the image which is on the screen, the black and white diagram that showed the post mutilation. So what he was able to view at the autopsy, he shared that the skin of the back was removed, the muscles in the back were removed, and so what was left was like exposed rib cage and a spine, and that the torso was extending from like the neck to the groin. It had been bisected or cut in half. He also noted that the way that Shad's body was cut in half, it allowed access for you to see his chest, pelvis, and abdomen like open, like it was cut open, and that the killer essentially, or Schabusiness, took advantage of that access and did something particularly grim, bizarre, and morbid, to the point that it was obscure. Like it was even wild to the examiner. He gave an example and said that Shad's left foot was recovered from within the lower chest cavity, meaning the dead man's foot, so Shad's foot, was cut off and stuffed into his chest at the time when the police or the law enforcement found him. So it not only spoke to the fact that she not only strangled him, but the dismembering and the way that she cut him open, and the way that he was found. And the autopsy results showed that she told the truth when she said, you know, I spent hours, 2, 3 hours playing with his body parts. That autopsy showed, like, no, she's telling the truth. She spent hours doing what she did, essentially. Now, as Taylor faced trial, her erratic behavior continued. And when I say her erratic behavior, we're speaking of what you saw at the beginning when she attacked her lawyer. That behavior plus what she did to Shad's body. That is erratic. That is wild behavior. She attacked her own attorney during a courtroom hearing. She shocked those in the audience, the judge, the jury, I am sure, at this time. Her attorney at that time asked the court's judge if he could be removed from her case. The judge totally understood, and that attorney was removed and replaced with a new attorney. Now, between her arrest and her trial in July, a number of hearings from July on, like over the course of months, there were a number of hearings held to discuss Schabusiness's mental state. What I'm describing to you, you would wonder, does this person have it all there? Like, is everything happening in the mental state psychologically as it should? And so the judge did take that into the account, and he obliged the defense, let's get her evaluated because she initially was pleading for insanity. Now, the mental health evaluations were ordered, and eventually Judge Walsh declared that she could stand trial and aid in her defense. And all the experts, except for one, essentially said that she was competent enough to defend her case. Now, continuing as we're discussing her sentencing and the verdict of this court and trial. So, Judge Walsh shared the following. The offense in this case cannot be overstated. This is literally what the judge said. He said, in this case, speaking to Taylor, he said, she seems to have run out of superlatives in describing what happened. So, going back to the testimony, to the interrogation about her nonchalantness and that she enjoyed what she was doing, he was like, "You ran out of, words to describe how much fun you were having." He also said to her that this crime offended human dignity, that it offended the human community, and he said that in this case, it can't even be overstated, like how inhumane she treated Shad's body. And then he also said that um, she will end up spending the rest of her life in prison, which is her life sentence plus 10 and a half years, and would not have a chance for parole. And the judge based his decision, he said, because of the way that she dismembered Shad's body, and that if she were to walk the streets, that the public would be in danger. He felt like if she is on the streets, then humanity is in danger with the lengths that she went to dismember and enjoyed hurting Shad, essentially. And then in the picture, you'll note that she's wearing like a spit guard. And so when the news reporters were asking the sheriffs why she appeared in court that way, they said that she had a habit of spitting on people when she's been in jail. And so to protect those who would be around her in the courtroom, they gave that spit guard so that she could not spit her fluids on anyone. Now, Schabusiness declined to testify at sentencing. She didn't have anything to say. And in the end, the jury had found her guilty of first-degree murder, and she was again sentenced to life without parole. I do want to note that her grandmother, speaking on her behalf at the sentencing, when they give their statements on character, that I really could understand from her grandmother's perspective that she had had years and years of trauma. And that's not an excuse, but it also speaks to addiction, because the grandmother was alluding to the fact that she had been on drugs, had gotten clean for a moment, and then relapsed, and then the trickle effect with her baby and all the things. But when you look at her life, it seems that she suffered a lot of losses. And that can be a lot for anyone to handle. Her father also shared comments from prison. He was able to give remarks, and it seemed like she was really happy in her disposition and reaction, seeing her grandmother and her father. And I know her father's in prison for what he did to the minor. But I also wonder what he was like with her. But he spoke well of his daughter as well, even from prison, of course. But um, just very wild, crazy, crazy situation in this case that we're mentioning today. If you made it this far, thank you for following along as we shared this wild story. What could drive someone to commit such an unthinkable act? Taylor Schabusiness had a history of drug abuse and mental instability, allegedly. So, some speculate that the combination of meth and other substances fueled her violent outbursts, but her chilling lack of remorse suggests something even darker beneath the surface. Possible motives, of course, drug use, sadistic tendencies, and a lack of empathy, definitely all present. She did have a history of mental health and struggle with erratic behavior. And I do believe that the role that the drug use played into this particular day for her heightened what were her normal violent tendencies. And I'll end off with this question: what can we learn from this particular case when we talk about red flags? The Taylor Schabusiness case serves as a grim reminder of the warning signs that we sometimes ignore. If you notice erratic behavior, someone that doesn't have control, they have a violent streak tendency, a lack of empathy, drug use is involved, those all can tend to lead to deadly combinations. So, understanding these red flags could possibly help protect yourself and others from a similar fate. Now, please comment, like, and subscribe, and let me know if you enjoyed this particular episode, and be on the lookout for the next one. If you have a suggested case that you would like to hear me research on, leave that as well. I hope you have a great one. Till next time.